so they can see us. All right. Let me make sure the post went through.
On email?
Yeah, did you get it yet? The notification?
Mm-mm.
I also have extreme heartburn right now.
Did
And
you have the appointment?
no, I'm going to call them because they haven't called me to give me a reminder.
But do you know,
Uh,
wasn't it like the 15th?
yeah, that's what I feel like it was
You
the
miss
week
it?
of they didn't call me to remind me, so I don't know. But they've been telling me to try these.
Who?
The people,
People
they not doing nothing for me. I still have
working?
heartburn. It's not working at all.
When I went to the gastro person, he asked me, there goes your it came through by the way. I need
Okay.
some chapstick. But the question he asked me if I had experienced heartburn. And I was like, is that a sign of something? And he was like, yes.
Oh, it's so bad. The other day,
You should go.
I was like almost vomiting in my mouth because of the acid was coming up.
You need to go to the
No,
people.
it's like I am. As a matter of fact, I sent myself an email to call them because I need to know like when is the appointment. I need to know when. I need to know when now. Okay, they're coming in here. They're filing in. They're filing in. Hello, hello, hello.
I'm going
We're gonna
to
give y'all. She said, "Harper, who this man?" We're gonna introduce him. We are going to introduce him in just a minute. Consider this the very first bald and the beautiful, the very first gin and juice bonus episode. We won't,
bonus.
yeah,
Hey,
bonus episode, but
special.
don't think it's gonna happen all the time, okay? But for right now, we got it going.
Feel special then.
Yeah, you're our very first person.
Yes. Oh, let me get this.
Okay, so I'm gonna give it like maybe 2 more minutes, if that, and
Okay.
then we're gonna start. And the reason why is because I still have to go pick up Joe, and the later I leave, the worse the parking spot gets, and I'm already gonna leave really late. Actually, I'm not even gonna get a spot. Who am I kidding? It takes 20 minutes to get there. School gets out at 3:20. I'm gonna leave at 3. I'm
Oh,
just gonna not get a spot at all, actually.
I need 1 second while you said
Okay.
you're waiting for people.
Okay. Listen, I'm not mad at this. She said, "Go and just start. They late." Yeah, listen, I contacted Nick and he was like, "Hey, girl, yeah, let's go and do that. You available on Friday? I'm available on Friday. Let's go and do that." So here we are. Yes, I got gas. I ran out of gas the other day, really close to my house, and yeah, I ran out of gas. So
Dang.
yeah, it was actually quite an experience. I haven't run out of gas since I was like 16. I ran out of gas the day before my birthday,
When's your birthday?
July 11th.
July 11th?
Hmm. All right, we're waiting for Mel. We got 1 more minute. Mel's kind of. Are you excited, Nick? They're excited. They're gonna be. Listen, they're gonna have the questions now. You ready for these hard hitting questions?
Hey, let's get it. I live for
Okay.
pressure. That's literally what my job is. That's literally what I do with my clientels. Make them be able to adapt under pressure.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Back,
Uh,
ready.
you ready? All right. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gin and Juice podcast. I am Melissa. I am often Juice.
And I'm Mel, and I'm always Jen.
And we are here with our very first, we're here on our very first bonus episode. Last week, Kevin and I, God dog, I host so many podcasts. I'm getting my co-host
Wrong podcast.
running off the tongue of how I'm normally talking. Last week, Melanie and I had a full conversation about Love is Blind season. Is this 3?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
season 3. Okay. We had a full conversation about season 3, specifically Zaynab and Cole. We were talking about gaslighting. We was talking about was it ain't gaslighting. who was the villain, who was the victim, and we use these words like this just as a means of comparison. Although neither one of them fit really neatly into either of those categories, which I think is part of the reason it makes this like a super complicated situation. So I told you guys that I knew Melanie and I disagreed on how we viewed the situation. So I was like on YouTube looking up not just reviewers like me and Mel, but y'all know how I do. I like to look up like, what do the experts say? And so I found Psychology in Seattle.
Oh, yeah, I saw his too.
Okay, I think that's his name. I found him, and I also found Nicholas Davenport. He is the Mental Breakdown on YouTube. And so I reached out because he's Black, we're Black. I was like, hey, yo, listen, me and Mel, my sister, we got this podcast. We was talking about it. I saw you was talking about it, specifically his episode where he was talking about the 8 signs of gaslighting and in relation to Love is Blind, and specifically Zainab and Cole. And I was like, yep, you're the person we need on the podcast. He said he was down. So that is why and how we are here. So first, Nicholas, tell us who you are, what you do, and your credentials to be on this podcast right now and talk to us from the perspective of an expert.
So my name is Nick Davenport. My background is in psychology. I have a kind of a crazy story. I've done clinical psychology. I didn't finish. I'm kind of like Kanye, the college dropout. I didn't finish my doctorate, but I did get my master's. I specialized in personality psychology, mental health, and sports psychology. So my actual career, I work with different populations, athletes, military, law enforcement, businesses, pretty much consulting how can they perform better using what I learned through psychology and different interventions so they can think better under pressure, less stress in their just day-to-day life, and just they can have a better job overall. So that's what I do as a career. And then my channel, The Mental Breakdown, I try to take different topics that are like current events, movies, shows, whatnot, and add the actual psychological application. And that's how you guys find me. That video actually was my biggest video. Like I've been doing it for about 4 months, like consistently. I had it for about a year and a half, but for the last 4 months, I've been pretty consistent on my posting. And that video blew up. It's at like 65K, and I made 3 more just to ride the wave. And it's like over 100 something K in the last week. So it's getting a lot of attention. So pretty good.
I will say that riding the wave, so to speak, of current events is probably one of the easiest ways to grow your channel. There's cheaper ways to do it, which is like, celebrity gossip stuff, which don't do that. But talking about what people are talking about, meaning television shows or whatever, and offering the perspective of an expert. Oh my God, people are always going to be so interested because it's real life. Even though we look at them as characters, even though y'all know Monty is fake, we look at them as characters. The reality is there's something about them that we're relating to. Mel, do you want to ask the first question? And I'm just going to make sure that no one's trying to come through the house.
Yes. Okay. The first question, because I have heard, child, what are we talking about? I have heard gaslighting, and people have explained it to me, I don't know how many times, and I always forget every single time what it is or like how it's defined. So from your expert knowledge, can you give us a definition and then maybe do some like examples of it, or like break it down for the folks that didn't go to the school that you went to?
Yeah. So, shouts out to my undergrad, the Great Bethune-Cookman University.
Hey, oh, nice.
We see
out. But yeah, but basically, gaslighting, that's why I did the video. It gets used so much. So I was like, let's talk about some aspects of it. So I guess the straightforward definition is just using manipulation tactics to make people question their own sanity. That's the simplest way to put it. So how that can look in romantic relationships, parental relationships, friendships, work. So it literally can be implemented in like any situation. So that's why I made a video when I saw it on the reunion. Swag, it's the Miak now, or Swag now, but Miak. So sorry, I saw the comments. But basically, with the reunion, I was like, there's something here, because obviously people can argue who was worse, who was bad. That wasn't my idea. My idea was like, let's just illustrate the examples in the show. So gaslighting is basically manipulating someone. I think I gave the history a little bit in that video too of where it even came from.
Can you talk about that? Where did it come from? Let's talk about that.
So that's the craziest thing about like the term, because I didn't even know where it came from. So when I looked it up, I'm like, dang, that makes sense. So it came from a play called The Gaslight, and they made it a movie in like the 1940s. And the premise was the lady's mom or aunt was killed, and the guy who killed her changed his identity, married the niece, and basically he started turning down the actual oil lamp that runs off the gas, and it made it dimmer and dimmer. So basically, she would say, "Did it get dark in here?" And he's like, "No, it's all in your head." And then he would start moving around like different objects. And then she would say, "Did I put this here?" He's like, "No, you put it there." So the whole premise of the movie was to get her to think she was crazy so she could get institutionalized, and then he could get the inheritance from her aunt. So that was the premise. So I think they said around the 2010s is when it started picking up traction. So that's like 70, 80 years later. And now it's used in our everyday language. But the term itself, I think, became popular in psychology around the 70s, but it blew up in the mainstream like last 10 years.
Does it have to be, can I ask? So it's using manipulation to make someone question their sanity, I think is like the definition that you gave. Mm-hmm. Does it have to be continuous? Like, is it the difference? Is the difference between gaslighting and lying is like an isolated event in which I'm like, oh girl, it's not dark, versus it's not dark, but I'm turning this down, it's not dark. So is that the difference? Is there a difference?
I would think that it would have to be continuous, because if you just do it one time, I guess that still could be gaslighting, but it won't be as detrimental, I guess, because if I say it one time and just go about my day versus every other day, I got you question if you're losing your mind, then it's actually affecting your daily disposition. Because that's when we talk about psychology, and I know we have a few clinicians in here, the name of the game is how frequent, how intense, and how severe, right? So if I do something one time, like let's use a disorder, like say, let's go with depression. Everyone gets sad, but the key is how severe is that sadness, how intense, and how frequently, and how long does it last? So going with that gaslighting example, I would say to be like truly detrimental, it have to occur more than a few times.
Got it.
And to the point of it occurring over and over and over again, what role does intent play in gaslighting?
That's a good question, because I think intent definitely is worse if you intentionally hurt someone. It's kind of like, say, with law, there's murder and there's manslaughter, right? So if I planned out to kill you versus I hit you with my car drunk driving, it doesn't change the fact that you died. But it's like I planned out with full intent that I want to harm you, that I know this is going to detriment to your family, your friends, versus like I just made a big mistake, but it still ended your life. So intent, I think, matters, because you shouldn't do something like that on purpose. But gaslighting can occur, and we'll probably talk about that in a few minutes. Like, it can occur accidentally, because a lot of times we just see things usually from our lens, and we don't always think about how it would affect the other person. So you might not mean any harm. Gaslighting can look as a beneficial thing out loud, but they might receive it as negative, So it just depends. But intent definitely is worse, because that means you went out to hurt me.
So as long as the result, I think, and I when I was talking to Liz about it, I used the example of premeditated murder versus like, oops, I killed you. That like made it small.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to do that. But anyway, as long as the result is the same, you're saying it can be gaslighting, whether intentional or unintentional. If you arrive at the same result, then the method you can still call it as gaslighting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the result would be having someone question their sanity, their logic, their perspective.
Their emotion.
I think sanity is one of those extreme things, but I think in real, like unintentional, where people really don't mean it, I don't always think it's like I always actually do say it's like, am I crazy? But I don't mean like, am I crazy? It's just like, am I thinking about this wrong? Like, am I really thinking about this that wrong? That kind of like thing, where maybe this is the example I use, and you can tell me, Nick, if I'm right or wrong. I think we can gaslight people unintentionally to save people's feelings. As an example, I'll give this as an example. Me and Mel were doing an original podcast, right? We actually talked about this. After I went back on it, I was like, now that I know, did
you gaslight me?
So this is the thing. Listen,
girl,
this is a great example, right? Because now when I look back on it, knowing what I know today, I could see it as gaslighting. But the question is, did you question it? So Melanie and I were going to do an original podcast, right? The podcast I was really excited about at first. And then toward the end, I don't even think I recognized that I really wasn't that excited. But regardless, toward the end, Mel was saying she could tell I wasn't really excited, right? As she continues to ask me, do you still want to do this? You still want to do this? Can you want to do this? And I'm still saying yes, but my everything else is saying no, or I'm giving the vibes of no. Could that be considered gaslighting? If she's like, I'm so confused. She's telling me yes, but her actions are telling me no.
Yes, because you're kind of leading them on, and if you're giving that indication that it may happen, you setting that precedent that you're going to follow through, and you don't, you put that rug from under them, then they're left hanging. So I guess that's an example. Unintentionally, you probably didn't want to, like you said, you didn't want to do it because you didn't want to, like, say, hurt your feelings or whatever it may be, but it still has the outcome still could be the same though. That's the sad part about it. You still could hurt the person.
Exactly. I think that was the point that I was trying to make with Melanie, and when we were talking about it last time, is that I absolutely think that in everyday life we can gaslight people unintentionally, because the end result is having someone question to oppose their reality of a situation versus what you're telling them is the reality of a situation.
Exactly.
I have a question though. How intention now I'm starting to question, right? Because if my goal is to make you believe that everything is fine, to not hurt your like, if that isn't the intention behind what I'm doing, is to make this okay. So there is still a bit of intention, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that it's
you're knowledgeable of what you're doing, obviously. So it's not like you're just disregarding. You know what you're doing, I guess. So there is some intent.
Well, I think I think the intent is, or what we get, because even when someone said that's just lying, I think the intent is that my intent isn't to gaslight you. My intent, no, that's not my intention. But I think the overall intent of gaslighting is to conceal something or to manipulate something. That is still an intent.
Got it.
Someone said, I think Nicholas should talk. Nicholas, talk.
Tell us all the things.
Tell us. We're trying to make it make sense. So tell us.
Some of the comments, I just seen them flashing by, and there's like, is that lying or is that just this? So I'll clarify. Like, that's why I did the video in the first place, because gaslighting gets used so much. So try not to think of it, the people listening, like as it has to define the exact criteria. Is it gaslighting? It's more so just like, are these aspects of it? You know what I mean? So it's not like a one size fits all. Like, oh, if they did this, it's gaslighting. More so, it's just a descriptive term. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at gaslighting as a term. It's an umbrella term. It's not a diagnosis. You can't be clinically say, oh, he's a clinical gaslighter. Now there is, I think you put that in your questions, that there is certain disorders or diagnoses that have symptoms of that. Yes, but it's not like a umbrella term that says you're this or you're that. So that's what I want to clarify with people who are saying, isn't that just lying? Just that's why I made the video, because there's different aspects of it. So that's.
Can you talk about those aspects?
So yeah, so basically when I do any of my videos, I always have to do research to understand what I'm going to talk about, obviously. And I found a few articles, and I always try to scrutinize where it came from. This one actually was from Psychology Today, which is a pretty good source for this type of information. And I saw articles like the 8 signs of gaslight. So I used those because there were some that said 10, some said 6. So it's just like anything, it's marketing. What sounds good? You know, like they say 21 days to form a habit. It could be 21 days, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. It's just 21 days sounds better. But basically, I found these 8 and I used those and ran with them. So the ones I used was projection, reinforce or positive reinforcement, making you question yourself or confusing you, turning people against you, belittling your feelings, and wearing people down. So basically, I just took those different ones. And the ones I think personally, what I saw the most when I talked about them was the projection, the using positive reinforcement, like saying, oh, I want you to feel better about yourself, but it's more so accommodating your own feelings. So these are just things that I went over in general.
So wait a minute. I want to be clear, because I think you immediately started talking about Zainab and Cole.
Zainab.
So yeah.
Say Zainab.
Oh, Zay. Okay, sorry, Zay. You know why I say Zainab? Because of the comedian, but you're right. Her name is Zainab. So Zay and Cole. So let's talk about them specifically. You have 8 signs of gaslighting that you kind of break down. Can you give us the key ones that you saw with Zay and Cole that made you think this is gaslighting on Zay's behalf to Cole?
First.
Mm-hmm. So I put on projection, wearing people down, turning people against you, using positive reinforcement to make you feel better, but it's more so of a crutch to like make you feel higher than you really are. But basically, those ones I chose because with the reinforcement, the projection with that the tangerine scene, that one, that's why I used that specific content, because it was like so outspoken versus the whole season, you know. So that specific scene stood out. Everyone's like, oh my God, was it that big a deal? Some people on my video has literally said, oh, she was blown out of proportion. Some people said, you're wrong, you're a body shamer. And I'm like, how do I become all that? But basically, the projection, I could see both sides. I get it. Because if you have some insecurities of your weight or your size, your look, I can understand how certain things being said. And like, we weren't there when the cameras are off, so we don't know. But what we saw is like, he did say comments, he rated her and all that good stuff. So I can see why she could be self-conscious. But then it's like, if you extrapolate that and take it to the point of, oh, you're restricting my food, because in that very scene, he said, I offered you food, and she said she denied it. So it's kind of contradictory of, if I don't want you to eat because I feel that you're out of shape or overweight, why would I offer you food, you know? So that's just a misconception. And I feel like she was projecting some of the insecurities that he probably heightened. Like, they probably were there, you know. This show was a year ago, so she's 30-something years old. It didn't start the day she met him. So she might have projected more of that onto the things that did transpire through the season.
Okay, give us another one.
Oh
wait, Mel got a question.
Yeah, I saw one pop on the screen. I didn't see what it said.
Wait, Mel has a question or a thought.
Mel got a question.
She gaslit him because in the cuties incident, sorry, I was still processing what you said, so I don't know if I actually have a question. I'm just going to restate what I think I heard. In the cuties incident, at the reunion, she's claiming that he is restricting her food and doing all of these things, and so because that is very obviously not the truth, because he offered her food in the example, she's gaslighting him because she's saying he did something that he didn't. So it made him question. Okay, I think I got it. I'm saying a bunch of words right now that in my mind are being
wrong with it.
I think I got it. Okay.
Yeah, with the questioning one, I used the example of when they were allegedly at the bachelor party, and I always try to talk with little bias as possible. We all got bias, but basically what I saw, and I've been to bachelor parties and I've been to tame ones and not so much tame ones, but basically that one, what we saw, once again, we weren't there after the cameras.
Yes.
There's only men there. So it's like that story of saying he got some girl's number, unless it was the camera crew's number, it didn't really check out, opposed to the girls' bachelor party.
You don't believe her?
What was that?
You don't believe that after the party, it was the after partying? The party, after partying?
I try to look at everything like a court case. What the evidence shows, all the other guys said they went home. He could have been the one that said, you know what, I'm going to chill here and see what I can pull one last night. That could have happened. But I'm going with the thing that looks more likely. I like to say the most probable, not the most possible, because it is possible. He could have said, you know what, guys, y'all go home. I'm going to stay here, or I'm going to go to the club next door. It's jumping. Let's go there and have some fun. They're like, nah, we're going to go home and sleep. And he said, nah, I'm out here. That could have happened. That could have happened. But from what the other 4 or 5 guys said, either they went home or they were silent. So I don't know what to make of that. So that's just my interpretation of the situation.
That was mine as well. Question for the audience. Who do you guys believe? Do you guys believe her, or do you guys believe
here's why I questioned it, though, right? And maybe this is her gaslighting. She said it's not like she was looking for other men to back up the story, because you would only need that if it was hearsay. He said you went out, so I need other people to confirm. What she said is that Cole told her himself, if I hear from the horse's mouth, I don't need the other zoo animals. I got the one. He told me. So why would she be lying to his face? Unless, I guess, she's a gaslighter, child.
Well, that's the thing. We don't truly know. Like I said in my video, there's his side, her side, and the truth. So only them and God knows the truth. So I can't really say. But based on how I interpret it, it looked like more so, not so much. But I could be wrong.
I don't want to make Zay out to be like a master manipulator. I don't believe that to be true. But it would be very beneficial to pit that story with my word versus yours, because then it really is only the two of us that can dispute this.
Yes.
So that is interesting.
you lost some credibility with the whole tangerines. It's like that weighed somewhat on my opinion too, like the tangerine scene. So
Yeah. Okay, what was another one of your signs of gaslighting with them?
so just to play on that one, turning people against you. So the whole narrative, and that's why I like looking at it. It just seems so calculated. So going off of what did or didn't happen is like, why come on so strong? It just like, because when we see it, it's already been filmed. I think like at least 8 months to a year in advance. So it's like she might have been sitting on that for a minute, and that's plenty of time for them to become best friends and all that. So it's like when it all unloaded, it was like so much. So that made me seem like, why would you do that? So it's like everyone was like against them or silent. There was not a single person who was like, well, maybe this happened or maybe he didn't mean it that way. No one stuck up. So that's like interesting to see that everyone was shifting towards like screw him or they was just indifferent. I think the Bartiz guy, he was the only one who I think kind of spoke up, but no one likes him, so his word means nothing. So so that's about it. So I guess turning people against you when you gaslight is like, okay, not only is the person gaslighting you making you question your own sanity or your emotions, now you got outside people. And guess what? I said in the video, whether it's education, whether it's history, whatever, we tend to believe what the majority believes, right? If you have 5-10 friends that all think one way, you tend to more listen to them than if I come out as a stranger and say, no, think the other way. So if you got that mob believing, it makes you say, well, she says it, he says it, they say it. Dang, what's going on? Why don't anyone believe me? Maybe I didn't remember. And if I get into like, even if you want to get into the neuroscience of it, a memory is just the recollection of the last memory. So memories don't work like photographs or video cameras. People think that's how we remember. No, remember is a collection of neurons. So every time they fire, it's recreating that pattern of neurons to make that memory. So that's why things like eyewitness testimony and all that are starting to get used less, because recalling it is going to change the story depending on your inside influence from yourself and external influence from what you see or hear. So recalling a story on both sides, whether it's him or the others, it could have changed a little bit, and you can really question yourself and maybe say, dang, maybe I didn't say that. So even from a cognitive standpoint, gaslighting can affect you because it's actually changing how you think and process in the moment.
Wow.
Okay, so we got projection, we got turning people against you. What's another one?
Positive reinforcement. I use that one because she kept saying, I accept your apology. I hope you find someone.
So
you're going to be okay. I want that for you. And it's like, it didn't sound sincere. Like at the end of the day, we can call a spade a spade. If she truly meant that, everything that happened post that reunion, because that's another thing I took into account. Like after doing all these videos, I had to do more research on this stuff than I probably wanted to. But seeing how like you delete your photo or not photo, your comments and things like that, that looks suspicious. Like going back to the legal example, if you're wanted for a crime and then you start like just disappearing and not answering questions, it makes you look guilty, right? Just like your example, like why wouldn't you say it if you know? But she was deleting her comments so no one can say anything. And then she made a post about, I'm sorry, I'm this, I'm sorry, I'm that. And I hate to say it, that was gaslighting because you're apologizing for someone else messing up. It's like, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way, or I'm sorry that you didn't like it how I liked it. That's not an apology at all. Like that's you see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that doesn't help her case either. So
the part that I thought was odd for me was her like Cole saying like I regret this whole experience and her saying she didn't. It didn't make sense to me that she wouldn't have regretted the experience. It was weird to me. It wasn't weird to you, Mel?
No, because you turn all your losses into lessons. That's what the rap artists say. That's what the rappers say. I ain't got no L's. I got lessons. And so she didn't. Why can't she?
That's contradictory to me though, because if you didn't like how someone treated you, why would you? If I purposely knew I could avoid some things in my past that were very detrimental, I get I could learn from them, but some of them could have been avoided, right? So why would you go back into it? That's how I looked at it. Like if it was that bad, like not saying he doesn't perfect, because I saw someone say stop infantilizing Cole, and this is something I got on my video a lot since I'm a man talking about women issues to an extent, and it's like I don't think he was perfect in that at all. I think he was dumb for like I'm be real. I'm 34, and I know even earlier than now you don't say certain things. Like I don't care how honest you are, brutal honestly that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you have to be real now because, hey, baby, you're beautiful, but she looks better. Like, that wasn't smart. Like, I don't care how young he is. He's what, 26? That's not that young. So I definitely don't give him a pass on that. Him being immature, playing games, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If she's not that type of person, so be it. But I don't think he was wrong for being like kiddie and playing, long as it wasn't all the time. But we can't see all the time. We just see the camera. So that's what it is. You know, he wasn't the best in that regard. And I never like give him any props on that. So I don't like when people try to make it like you have to be pro or con. It is what it is either way. You know, it's like Team Cole, Team Zay. It's just like, no, there's two people who both had traits that didn't work. Some were bad, some didn't help, and it is what it is. That's how I feel.
Okay. What does gaslighting look like in real life? Like, okay, we have this Cole and Zay example. I think people are getting it. Well, let me say this because I want to be clear as well, because I know we're going to probably get those same comments. This is a conversation about the way in which Zay gaslit Cole. Maybe it's a good idea to say, do you think Cole gaslit Zay at all?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe just to balance the conversation so we don't, I think what happens is by focusing on one side, people assume that you don't see the other side, and that's just not the context of the conversation. But so we don't get those comments, maybe we offer that side as well.
So I guess a simple way to say how you kind of gaslight her, like, but it was, once again, the term is what it is. But I think he made a comment about like her race, and it's like making it clear that she interpreted as, oh, I'm not your type. And he made a comment kind of like, well, yeah, I knew you weren't a blonde white girl or something like that. And it's like, he didn't mean it, once again, as a, I guess, negative. Maybe he did. I don't know his intent. But basically, you're coming off as, let me lessen the blow, because I'm not going to say you're not my type, but I'm just going to make it clear that you don't have the characteristics from your name. I could tell you weren't this or that. So it's kind of like trying to soften that blow versus saying, yeah, you're not my type. You know what I mean? Because this is the thing with that show. It's called Love is Blind. So you literally have to assume off of just their emotional disposition, personality, that they're the one for you. Now, when that veil gets lifted, you see, what is it, third season? So it's like, I don't think it's ever worked. So I guess love isn't blind, because every time they see them.
Is it what's the name come out for this show?
Yeah, Lauren and Cameron are still married, and Amber and
so
I think his name is Barnett.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Barnett. So a few people. So, yeah. But it's probably less than 20%.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think the problem is, from just what I see, just using the visual aspect of it, the ones who have closer compatibilities with their looks tend to fare a little bit better, I think. Not saying they're the best looking objectively, but they can look at each other and say, okay, I can do this. It's usually the ones who's like, dang, that's who I could have been. Think about it. Every time it's a discrepancy of who they could have been with and who they got, that's typically where the biggest problems occur, it seems like, in any season, right? Yeah. So I think that proves that there has to be, not necessarily objectively like Rihanna, Beyonce, like whatever beauty standards people want to hold themselves to. I don't know. It can look a lot of ways. But it's like when there's a discrepancy of what you want and what you didn't get, that seems to bring the most problems, I think, in this show.
I have a question because in our episode, me and Melissa's episode, I was trying to think of a good example and I couldn't remember. And then when I looked at the comments, someone said the exact example that I wish I would have remembered, which is this, that there are instances sometimes, again, just an example, but where men many times will say that they love a natural woman. They love your natural hair and they don't want you to have makeup on, and they love natural bodies. And yet all of their likes and comments on social media are that to women who have fake butts, BBLs, who have weaves to their behinds, who have lashes that can make them fly away, and makeup that you could eat off of, right? So is that gaslighting when men do that? And so then, right, a woman is now insecure because of what you are obviously liking is playing on my maybe already existing insecurities. And so I believe that could be, you're the expert, a form of gaslighting. And I think that more closely resembles what Cole was doing to Zay. Tell me I'm right. That's my mic drop.
That definitely is. But I agree with his gaslighting, but I don't know how much men are in this chat, give or take. I would say what 90%.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Okay. So I don't know if I should say what I'm about to say or should I? I don't know. But I'm just gonna say it.
Just prepare to be stoned.
It's fine.
This is actually what this is actually what I think. But continue. But say your thought.
Well, I was going to answer. I agree that is gaslighting, because if you say you want this, but go for that, there's an incongruence in what you say and what you do. So how could I think that you want me if you're going for that? So, but I would say that a lot of men who do that, it's typically that those girls, they wouldn't probably marry. And this is just how a lot of men think. I'm being honest. This is how men think.
Wait. Say it one more time. I got lost.
PG-13. They probably wouldn't marry those girls.
They just want the BBL girls for the night. They don't want them for the night.
I'm keeping it PG-13 for the kids.
Oh, got it. I thought you were talking about the girl that was like okay, got it.
No, the natural girl is, but this is the problem with that. But I'm not agreeing with it. This is the problem with that, because you're sending this mixed signal, and it's like, why would a person feel I should be this when 90% of the guys are going for that? And it's this big disconnect that's ruining it, because if you truly want that, go for that. But a lot of guys have this misconception that if I play it like this, I'm lucky enough I can do all that with those girls, and eventually when I'm ready, I'll get that girl. But just like vice versa, they're going to see what you're doing, and it's going to not work. So I guess it's a disconnect on both sides.
Okay, is that this then, where Cole was basically saying that he was telling her that he was attracted to her. I do remember him telling it to other people, but the reality is that there was a disconnect in what he typically went for and what Zaynab looked like. Is that gaslighting? Is this two things can be true? What is it? Because that's what I tend to believe, but I just threw that out there.
I think it could be. Well, this is the thing. This is why I think the show messes up, is that they've only known these people for 2-3 weeks. So it's like, how much have you invested to say that if I see her, I just disregard the fact that she is attractive? Like, that's unrealistic to say that. And I'm not married. I know, Melissa, you are. Like, when you're married, or even in a relationship, there's going to be other people that look good. So it's not like you can't think that type of person attractive, that person attractive. It's just who you invest in. I think he used that as an excuse or a reason that you're the one I chose. And that, I'm not saying that makes it better, but it's like, I think there's some truth to that, because you may prefer this completely, but that's not all that matters. Looks matter, but it doesn't matter to the point that you'll sacrifice better qualities or traits. So that's why I think that might be,
So psychology in Seattle, I was about to say Psychology Today, he actually touched on this point. And this is the point he was making, which I do think there's truth to, but I think a little bit is Cole gaslighting a little bit. This is my own personal, I'm not an expert, but this is the truth. I think there is truth to this, that you can be with your partner and believe that they are a 10. You can also be with your partner and not necessarily believe that they're a 10, but as a package, they are a 10. And they're the person you're choosing to be with. That's the point Psychology Today, or Psychology in Seattle, whatever his name is. That's the point Psychology in Seattle was making. That those two things, because physical attraction is only one component of deciding to be with someone.
It's fleeting. Like, looks are fleeting.
Yeah. And I also think that looks are weighted differently to different people. Mm-hmm. So I do agree with that. With that said, the problem with Cole was that, and this is why he's a dummy, he kept bringing up and comparing Zay to Colleen. He kept comparing, and that's where that could be confusing to Zay. Because you're like telling me I'm beautiful, but also you still keep bringing up this girl. Instead of being like, you asked, I'm an answer, but I'm going to continue in the future to double down on you and not continue to make the comparison that I don't think helps her insecurities, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, definitely.
He also shouldn't have said, and you were saying, you can believe that your partner is not a 10 in looks, but maybe 10 as a package. And I agree that can be the truth. That's also something you probably shouldn't say out loud.
100%. You absolutely. And that's why that's why he's the dum-dum, though.
Yes.
That's why he's the dum-dum. Those are things. She shouldn't have asked the question because she didn't want the truth. and he shouldn't have answered because why would you tell the truth?
Or he can ask the question and you should just have a man who knows better.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw someone to come and say about the bipolar part. I think that was gaslighting because he asked, and this I actually made another video about this as well on that topic. And bipolar is misconfused of what it is. Like people think bipolar is just mood swings. A mood swing is everyone. Everyone has mood swings. Every few hours you might feel up and upbeat, and by the end of the day you might be down and like out of it. Don't mess with me. That's normal human behavior. But when he said, "Are you bipolar?" he was being smug about it. I'm not discounting that. He was smug about that.
Yes.
I didn't like that because in psychology, when you do that, you dismiss people who really deal with these things. And that's how the whole, because I've had clients misuse terms like OCD, bipolar, narcissistic personality disorder, all these things because they hear it in general use like that. And now you don't make sense of it because bipolar has to do with having a manic episode, meaning you're over elated, you're more impulsive. It's noticeable, but it shouldn't be as noticeable to the degree that it so stands out. That's why some people don't always realize if someone is in a manic episode unless they really know how the person is. So it's like that has to happen. That's what bipolar is. And then there's bipolar 2, when you have a less hypomanic, which is a little lower. And then there's the major depression. So that's why it's different from just having a mood swing. It's the difference between being super elated versus major depression versus just like one day I feel this way and a little later I feel a different way. So him using it might have been ignorance, but he definitely was trying to belittle her, I think, in that situation.
Yeah, he definitely was.
I know we don't have tons of time. Can we talk a little bit about the villain Bartise?
Bartise, the villain.
The real villain?
The real villain. For the whole time, he really didn't want to do it. And he literally strung it along because I think in other seasons, they had people stop the moment they say, you know what, this ain't for me, and they stepped out. So I don't get why he went from the beginning to the end continuously saying, you're not the worse than the Cole guy. You're not the one I usually go for. Raven's a hot smoke show. He was pretty bad. So the fact that they made it that point, I don't get that was like ultimate gaslighting because he made it seem like I'm going to say yes to you. We're going to make this work. And then the moment it happens, you know what? I'm out. So yeah, he definitely
heard that note ahead of time that let's do this note or whatever it was. Yeah, that was misleading. That was gaslighting. That's like gaslighting.
Yes.
That's very clear. What are your thoughts on that? To me, that's very like clear cut.
Yeah. If you write a note, yeah, that's bad because you're literally saying I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna make this work to some extent, and then when it came time, you literally just say never mind. Like you literally showed one thing and did the other. So,
yeah.
I
wonder how much of this is the producers. I wonder how much. Yeah, I wonder if
I've been on TV sets, I've consulted with shows, and I've seen this, not this type of show, but I've seen shows in real time, and there is influence because people don't understand like reality just means it's not scripted. Doesn't mean it's not directed. There is a director saying, all right, Bartise over there, you're on the bar stool. Colleen, you're over there in the pool. Cole, you get in the pool, talk to Colleen, and go. Yeah. And then the conversation comes naturally. Because remember, you got to get mic'd up. Like, that doesn't just happen that naturally. There's some direction. So I think people misinterpret reality versus not directed or not scripted. There's a difference there. So
yeah, that's actually good.
They might even refilm it like, you know what? That wasn't intense enough. Say it again. Like that definitely happens. So I don't know how much you can take it with a grain of salt. How I think it's real, obviously, but I think there is some like production value that's implemented.
One more thing I want to say. Just to the point you made at the very beginning about it being like continuous. One of the things that both Zay and Bartise both said is that they didn't know what they were going to do until they got to the altar. And I believe that both of them knew what they were going to do before that day, even. I think that they had both arrived at their conclusions and yet continued to act. Bartise more so than Zay, but pretend like wanted to maybe to not hurt feelings, maybe to try to convince themselves. What?
I think that the producers like want the audience to feel surprised and like there's still suspense.
Yeah.
Even though, because I think in the real, if I gave Bartise the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying if I gave him the benefit of the doubt during that period where Nancy was like, he just is completely clocked out, like he is not really here. There was that period of time. I think he probably could have gone, would have gone, should have gone. I don't know what actually happened, to the producers and be like, listen, this ain't gonna work. I'm simply not attracted to this girl. My answer is no. I'm trying, but I can't get over this hump. I can't do it. And I can imagine producers, this is a made up scenario, you guys. I just want to be clear. Made up scenario. I know nothing, but I can imagine scenario where producers are like, so listen, you signed this contract.
Yeah.
We need you for 17 episodes, 8 episodes, however many episodes. If you decline now, or if you're like, I'm out, my answer is definitely no now, you're going to owe us some money. I don't know. Again, I don't know. Or whatever. You're in breach of contract. So what we need you to do is
be all in.
Be all in for the next, or simply try. You never know. She's a great girl. Just continue to try. And all the while, he knows his answer is no.
Got it. Yeah, that could be. Okay.
All right. I don't know. Again, made up scenario.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you wanted to add? Because I got to go in like 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Time.
Do you have any questions from our audience?
Oh, yeah.
Any questions from our audience? And Nick, did you want to add anything?
I guess overall, some things I got asked on my original video was talk about like people talk about narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder a lot too, as like a more common, kind of like how people use gaslighting, they use it a lot. And I guess you could talk about maybe, because some people kept asking, why did she even go along with the Bartise guy for so long, despite what he showed? And there's something I talked about in past videos a few months back. It's called the dark triad. And there's actually parts of it that studies have shown that women may be attracted to a degree because some of those traits presented in the dark triad, and I'll explain that real quick what that is, have some of the tendencies that a woman would want. But if you go too high on the traits, it becomes toxic or detrimental behavior. So basically what the dark triad is 3 traits. There's narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. So you probably heard the term psychopathy or psychopath before, right?
Oh, okay. The last one I didn't know.
Oh yeah, Machiavellianism. So Machiavelli, though, he's a philosopher from the, I think, 1500s, 1400s, and he wrote a book called The Prince, which is about how to deceive people to become like powerful rulers, leaders, such as that. So when you look at the traits, the dark triad, so let's start with psychopathy. This is having no remorse, no feeling, being indifferent, doing things without the thought of who you may hurt in the process. So that's where psychopathy comes in. Narcissism, that's having that godlike presence, thinking that you're more superior, thinking that people are beneath you, that your word is bond, all that stuff. And then Machiavellianism, that's basically lying and manipulating to get what you want. So when you think about these traits, think about, like, I'll use a real world example. Politicians, they're a perfect example of these people because they have to say and do things despite the outcome to get what they want. So they have a lot of that Machiavellianism trait. And when they say, how do women fall for this? Because when you think to a degree, to be a quote unquote strong leader, strong man, you have to have some of those traits, but at a very low level, you know, because if you're a strong leader, you kind of have to sometimes step over people, not in like a screw their lives type of way, but more like you got to boss up and make things happen. And then Machiavellianism, you got to kind of like do what has to be done no matter what. You know, people say you got to make ends meet, so you got to make it happen. And then psychopathy to the low level is more so not considering what could be the outcome of the others. So when you say, why did she fall for Bartise? So those out there, look this up, the dark triad. So these are some of the traits that are exemplified at a high level or bad, obviously. That means you're a person that, like, look at serial killers, that's that. That's why Ted Bundy, for example, why were women at his trial holding signs saying, we love you, Ted? Now, that's extreme, obviously. He had those traits, but too far because look what he did. But to some extent, the guys you date, all the ladies out there, think about all the guys you dated that you really can't get out your mind. If you're with them still, great. If you're not, I'm saying the good guys, not bad guys. They have some level of this because that's why you like them, because they can make you feel that feeling like, okay, he can handle it. Because if you go back to ancient times, you had to have that chaos because people confuse like peacefulness with being like weak, because a peaceful man is a man who can make like havoc happen if he needs to, but he chooses not to, versus a weak man would be someone, if something went down, he couldn't do anything, right? So that's why those traits, going back to the dark triad, kind of make sense of why exhibit these as men because we want to show that we have dominance. But if you go too high, like say you're using Bartiz, then it's just being a douchebag, right? So it's more so understanding how much and how little a person should have. So word of the day, dark triad.
I gotta look it up. I followed and I got a little bit lost, but I think I understand.
So I do a lot out there, I know, yeah.
There's a
But
lot.
dark triad. So like what they say, don't take my word for it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see the show lasting since okay?
I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, go. Sorry, Mel. I was hoping to see
I didn't see one, but my question is, do you have any advice, suggestion, recommendations on how to deal with people who are gaslighting you, or when you feel like you're being gaslight, particularly if well, yeah, just in general, and if it's maybe your partner or like someone that you love, and like how do you manage that?
very good question.
The first thing is easier said than done is start with yourself. So let's say if someone says, let's use relationships. Oh, you must be cheating because you're doing something different out your regular schedule. And if you know you're not doing stuff of that nature, first start yourself like, wait, I'm not doing that. Because I think the first mistake we do when we succumb to gaslighting is we throw away our side of it. Like we automatically dismiss that I have the role first, because before they can gaslight me, I know what went down. So the whole point is to get you to shift your thinking and your emotional disposition, right? So you got to double down and remind yourself, which I know is easier said than done, because sometimes you trust people, and that's why it's so easy to get gaslit, because it usually comes from the people you trust. Like if it happens from a stranger, you're probably already got that guard up. But if it's your husband, your wife, your best friend, that's the sad thing. It usually comes from them. So it's like, I guess the easiest advice, or simplest advice, not easy, is start with yourself and reaffirm in your head, because people always talk about affirmations more in the happy-go-lucky way, but even do it from things like this. Like go back in your head and repeat. Like I talked about the thought process, how neurons fire. You literally can wire your brain to be stronger by reaffirming your beliefs of what you did or sometimes didn't do. So I guess that'd be a good way. Start with yourself, reaffirm what did and didn't happen, so you can play it back and say, you know what? He's kind of playing with me, or she's going, So question yourself before you question them, because that's who. Don't give the power to them. Don't let them write your narrative, right? Don't give them the pen.
The other thing that I've heard about gaslighting or people that are gaslit is or that helps kind of to the point that you're making, is writing stuff down. Because as I was just thinking about it, people that are often gaslit, it's not always about the same thing. Sometimes it really is just someone being able to manipulate or control you. So they end up doing everyday things that make you question you.
Mm-hmm.
So you find yourself.
The movie shows that perfectly.
Yeah, right. I mean, I haven't seen
thing little by it wasn't overt. It was very subtle.
Right.
Like the phone was over here. Wait, I thought I put it there. Or it's like you say, "Oh, didn't you eat already?" Like, did I? Now you start saying, maybe I shouldn't eat right now. Like, so it's subtle things like that. Yeah. It's like anything. It's always the subtle things.
Yeah. So I would say that too. If you feel that you are in a situation where you are being gaslit, writing things down. So that way you don't have to recall things from your memory, because my memory is trash. Okay. And I will be the first to be like, I don't know. I don't remember. But what I know is this. I just don't remember the exact thing. And so even I sometimes have to write stuff down, so that way I'm able to recall and have a conversation about like, no, this is what actually happened. I think that helps as well. Okay. Anything else? I got to go. Mel, I might let you close out. Any other questions, Mel? That was a really good question.
I know you have to go. There was many, some, but they were more about like other guests on the show, other people. And so with time, I don't know if we'll have enough time to kind of go through.
Anything else you wanted to say overall about gaslighting, Nick, or about the show, or any questions that you saw here that you may want to answer?
I think we answered most of what they were saying, like I said, other than the guests. So I guess all in all, when it comes to just mental health in general, be mindful of yourself first, like not in a selfish way, obviously, but I think that's a problem. What I've seen just through my daily life and career is that people tend to forget about themselves. Like, it's kind of weird how we'll give to others, whether it be family, friends, or even strangers, but we'll discount that person who we have to deal with every day, right? So that's my take home advice.
Very good. Tell the people where they can find you on Instagram and YouTube.
So on Instagram, find me at Mr. Mental Muscle. I know they put the mental breakdown in there, but that actually has more of my stuff because I just started the mental breakdown channel. So I have a bigger following and presence on Mr. Mental Muscle. And then YouTube, the mental breakdown.
Got it. The other thing I want to say, because I saw the intent thing come up again, I think that gaslighting is, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but it's an effect of something, not the action. Well, actually, I think it's both. It's the action, it's an action, but also it's an effect on someone. So the effect of gaslighting is what can cause you to do something unintentionally. It's just like murder. I can murder you, and the effect is death, but also the act of murder is it as well. So I think that might help as well. I don't know if I'm making sense all the way. Like
Yeah,
and it's an effect. Okay. And I think that might help us understand why you can gaslight someone without intent, because that has to do with the effect, not the action.
You can kill someone and you can murder someone. The result is someone still dies.
Yeah, because homicide just means a person was killed.
Yes.
But murder means I tried to do it.
Yes.
Thank you for making it make sense. I was trying really hard, to make it make sense. And I think that might help us understand why you can gaslight someone without the intent of gaslighting. But this is good. Last thing, but it does involve manipulation. But I also think you can manipulate someone without intent as well. That's just my personal opinion.
Or maybe it's not malicious intent.
Oh, there we go. It's not always malicious intent.
Not always malicious. You can do something intentionally and the intention is still good-hearted, or you can do something with the intent to harm.
Very good. Very good.
Definitely.
Okay.
Like, one more thing, because using that example, if you say something, and this is seen in the Black community, especially with Black women a lot, you're so strong. How could this hurt you? And is not intentionally belittling their weakness, but to say that they're strong, it is a compliment, but they get weak too. Like I always say, who's strong for the strong when the strong get weak? So that's I think a good example of unintentional gaslighting. When like, you're such a strong person, I couldn't even. So now you're saying, well, I guess I can't be weak now because you made it clear that I'm a strong person, and therefore you bottle it up, and you have to deal with it without someone to go to. So
yeah, I know I do. Okay, thank you guys. Yeah, I do have to go. Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas, so very much. I think that last little bit was like exactly what we needed. So I'm happy we were able to talk that through. Until the next episode, bye. Let me end broadcast. All right. Thank you